Hello. I wish you doing well. Sulaiman, Hebrew, Shlomo, in Aramaic, in English Solomon, is one of the kings of the kingdom of Israel according to what is mentioned in the book of the First Kings in the book of the First Days News according to the Talmud. He is one of the 48 prophets and the son of David, and the third kings of the United Kingdom of Israel before dividing it into a kingdom northern Israel, the kingdom that was ruled by the 12 tribes of Israel, and the kingdom of Judah in the south, which was ruled by the people of the Judah tribe, and is the only one left of the 12 tribes according to the writings of the Jews. It is believed to have lived in the period between 970 BC to 931 BC. He passed away at the age of 52 and became famous, according to the Jewish creed, by his wisdom, richness, great king, and a number of sins, whereby Jehovah punished the children of Israel for dividing their kingdom. The Jew said he was the first to build the temple and his story with the king of the Ashmadai. He is one of the prophets of Islam, according to what is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Saba, Th. Al-Naml, Surah Al-Baqarah and Al-An'am, Surat Al-Anbiya, with differences in aspects of the Hebrew story and an affirmation of wisdom, wealth, and a king that no one has brought like. According to the Quran, Solomon teaches the logic of birds, animals and insects, and has jinn and demons devoted to his service and obedience. The existence of Solomon historically and in the manner depicted by the writers of the Enoch and other religious books in disagreement between archaeologists and anthropologists. There is neither for him nor for his structure any trace in Palestine, nor does any mention of it appear in the annals of civilizations supposed to have been adjacent to it in ancient Egypt, Assyria and Phoenicia, or those that are believed to be I called him in old Yemen. It was mentioned in the book of the First Kings that when David got older, he could no longer feel the warmth, so his advisors offered him to marry him to a young and beautiful girl, who might warm David in his old age, and found a girl named Abishunmia to do this. And David had a number of sons at the time, which were Adonijah, Absalom, Amnon, Shavasha, Yathram, and Caleb. Adonijah declared himself king over Israel during his father's aging, and he was jailed in the same prophet Nathan, who was an advisor to David. Nathan rushed to Solomon's mother, informing her of the act of Adonijah and urging her to go to David for two reasons: that Jehovah wanted Solomon to build the temple after David's death, and the second reason is David's promise to his wife for his nation as true as stated in the book to surrender Solomon the king. Even though Adonijah is the oldest son, King David is alive, but he was spoiled and arrogant and was not accepted by the priests and prophets. And David said to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, the prophet Nathan, and the priest Zadok, Solomon is alive, who is the Lord who redeemed myself from every tribulation, that is I swore to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, saying that Solomon your son possesses after me while he sits on my chair instead of me, so do this day. Take with you the servants of your master and ride Solomon my son on the mule that I have and bring him down to Gihon. And there Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anointed him over Israel and struck the trumpet and said to greet King Solomon. And you go up behind him and he comes and sits in my chair while he owns on his behalf, and he has recommended that he be the president of Israel and Judah. When Adonijah heard the sound of trumpets and psalms, his collection dispersed from him, and Adonijah fled and stuck to the horns of the altar for fear of Solomon, asking him to swear not to kill him with the sword. Solomon said, Solomon, if he is a virtue, does not fall from his hair to the earth, but if evil is found in him, Solomon dynasty took him down from the altar and prostrated before Solomon, who pardoned him and returned him to his home. When King Solomon leveled after Solomon's death, Adonijah went to Sulaiman, asking her to mediate with him to marry him, Abishag-al-Shunmiyah, but the request was rejected and Solomon sent his army commander, called Benaiah bin Jehoiada, to kill him, and so Sulaiman got rid of his brother and every threat against his property. Solomon was completely ruling that he was chosen from Jehovah and was able to expand his authority by marrying a number of daughters of neighboring kingdoms, kings such as the daughter of the Egyptian pharaoh not named in the Hebrew texts, and considered marriage a political alliance between the kingdom of Israel and Egypt. According to the writings of the Jews, Solomon married from the daughter of the Egyptian pharaoh. The Old Testament states that the unnamed Egyptian pharaoh occupied Uzir within the Palestinian city of Ramleh today and exterminated the Canaanites. He mentioned in the text that the city became Solomon after the battle of the Egyptian pharaoh. He also married the daughter of the king of Ammon, Sada in Moab, and the kingdom of Israel flourished because of trade relations and political with these kingdoms, and reminds the Old Testament that all the kings of the earth came to listen to the wisdom of Solomon and learn from it in acts performed by gold and gifts every year, but made the people of Canaan, all the servants subservient to him, and the children of Israel did not enslave one of the Hebrews, because they are men fighting on what was stated in the Old Testament. There is no reference in the Bible to a marriage between Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. It was mentioned in the book of the First Kings, in the 10th chapter, that the Queen of Sheba, whose name he did not want, heard in his wisdom among the kings of the land that she heard about it as well, except that she wanted to test him with issues, so she presented him with large convoys carrying gold and spices, and recognized the wisdom and greatness of the king of Solomon, and that she saw him in particular he outweighed the descriptions and news that were received from him. According to the Jewish heritage, because the queen approached Solomon and asked him questions and tested him with many mysteries and riddles until she realized that the wealth of Solomon given to him by his God exceeds her possessions, and according to some Jewish traditions, Solomon married from her and gave birth to a son named Ben Sira. One of the most prominent traits that Solomon was famous for is wisdom, and this is mentioned in the New Testament and the Quran as well. The most famous stories of the Old Testament about his wisdom appear in the story of the two quarrels and a baby. Solomon's dream one night, and it seemed to him that Jehovah was going on, and thanked him for his mercy with his father David, and if he enabled him in the king after his death despite his young age, Jehovah blessed him by granting him wisdom and a kingdom that was not given to anyone before him, and no one after him will have it. Solomon in Gibeon. The Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. And God said, I ask, what shall I give you? Then Solomon said, that you have done with your servant David my father a great mercy, as he walked before you with honesty, righteousness, and righteousness with you. So I kept for him this great mercy, and I gave him a son who sits on his throne like this day. Now, O Lord God, you have owned your servant in the place of David my father, and I am a young boy. I do not know going out and entering. Your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen countless and many people. Give your servant a heart and understanding, to judge your people, and distinguish between good and evil, for who can judge this great people? And the words were good in the eyes of the Lord, because Solomon asked this matter. And God said to him, because you have asked this matter, and you have not asked yourself many days, nor have you asked yourself richness, nor have you asked the souls of your enemies, but have asked yourself for discrimination to understand the ruling. Behold, you have done according to your words. Behold, I have given you a wise and special heart that it was not even like you before you, and your counterpart does not follow you. I also gave you what you did not ask, for richness and dignity, so that there will be no man like you in kings all your days. If I walk my way and keep my statutes and my commandments as David your father walked, I will prolong your days. So Solomon awoke, when he was a dream, and he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, ascended holocausts, and offered sacrifices of safety, and made a feast for all his servants. The Old Testament tells the story of the two adulterers in the book of the First Kings, the most famous story of his wisdom according to the Jewish heritage. Two women entered Solomon, were married to two brothers, and lived in one house. One of them slept at night with his infant and killed her wrongly, and it appears from the Torah that she slept on him without feeling, and this led to his death. So she arose while another woman was unaware and took her son and put the dead infant in his place. But the trick did not deceive the woman, because she knew her son and decided to seek refuge with Solomon. Sulaiman heard the arguments of the two women, and they both called the motherhood of the child. Then Solomon knew which one was the true mother of the child, and she was the one who chose to lose her child to see him killed. Solomon awoke, while he was a dream. He came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, ascended the burnt offerings, and offered sacrifices of safety, and made a feast to all his servants. Then two adulterous women came to the king and stood in his hands. And one woman said, Listen, sir. I and this woman live in one house, and I was born with her in the house. On the third day after my birth, this woman was born again, and we were together, and we had no stranger at home other than us. We were both at home. The son of this one died at night, because she lay down with him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side, and your mother was asleep, put him in her arms and put her dead son in my arms. When I rose up in the morning, I would feed my son if he was dead. And when I looked at him in the morning, then he was not my son who gave birth to him. And the other woman said, no, but my son is alive and your son is dead. And this says, no, but your son is dead and my son is alive. And you spoke before the king. And the king said, this says, this is my living son and your dead son, and that says, no, but your dead son and my living son. Then the king said, bring me a sword, and they missed the sword in the hands of the king. Then the king said, split the living boy too, and give half to the other and half to the other. And the woman, whose living son had spoken to the king, spoke, because her guts were set on her son. And she said, listen, my lord. Give her the living boy and do not kill him. But that said, it is neither mine nor yours. And the king answered and said, give her the living boy, and do not kill him, for she is his mother. And when all Israel heard the ruling that the king ruled, they feared the king, because they saw God's wisdom in it to make the judgment. According to the Jewish traditions and other cultures affected by their heritage, Solomon is considered one of the most famous sages known for the literature of wisdom and history, and many of the proverbs and wisdom in the books of Apocrypha, and the second legal books in the travel of Joshua bin Sirach, and the travel of the university, and those writings related to love and spinning as the hymn of the chants are attributed or based on the ideas and heritage that Solomon's successor. The name of a king of the orcs is mentioned in the book of Tobia, and according to the Hebrew heritage, a fun imp and responsible for the playgrounds of amusement, and added in the Christian literature to the list of the 7 princes of hell. According to the Talmud, he is one of these yin and the orcs close to Satan and Jehovah in the divine court, and responsible for attaching damage to those who do not adhere to the teachings of El-Kosher, one of the sprites that helped Solomon to build the temple. The Quran did not mention it, but he mentioned about Solomon's control of the yin and the sprites and the construction work they were doing for him. According to the Jewish heritage, the structure was built in Jerusalem in a land set. Her threshing floor was bought by David to be the headquarters of Ta'at Covenant, which is the place webbed to Moses in the wilderness. David did not build the temple, and bowed to the desire of the God of Israel as to build the temple in the reign of his son Solomon. For a period of 13 years, Solomon built a large number of temples according to the books, including building a port in Edom and building a military barracks in Palmyra as well. Solomon died after 40 years of absolute rule, 33 of which were on Israel and Judah, and 7 on the city of Hebron, and he died a natural death, and was succeeded by his son Rehoboam. The Torah narrates that one of the reasons for the division of the kingdom is Solomon's attachment to women of the Gentiles, such as the daughter of the Egyptian pharaoh, who seduced his heart by following the gods of ancient Egypt. Solomon built a number of temples to sanctify these gods, but was the most influential of his 300 wives, and there is almost a consensus among the biblicalists that she is the woman concerned in the hymn of chanting marriage to non-Muslims is prohibited according to the Jewish religious texts. These women influenced Solomon's attitudes and his faith forth in the Book of Kings, that his attachment to the God of Israel was not like that of his father David, and that his heart tended to the gods of the Sidonians, the Phoenicians, Astarte, which caused the wrath of Jehovah and promised to tear his kingdom apart in the reign of his son Rehoboam. The reason for delaying the sentence is Jehovah's respect for David. King Solomon loved many strange women, with the daughter of Pharaoh Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians and Hittites. Of the nations whom the Lord said to the children of Israel, do not enter to them, and they do not enter you, because they tend your hearts behind their gods. Solomon stuck to these with love. And he had 700 women and 300 concubines, and his women dictated his heart. And it was at the time of Solomon's old age that his women hoped for his heart beyond other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God like the heart of David his father. Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God like the heart of David his father. Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Malcolm, the abomination of the Ammonites. Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not follow the Lord completely like David his father. Then Solomon built a high place for the curse of the abomination of the Moabites on the mountain that is toward Jerusalem. and so he did to all of his strange women who were burning and sacrificing to their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. And in this matter he commanded him not to follow other gods. He did not keep what the Lord commanded. And the Lord said to Solomon, because that is with you, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes that I commanded you, for I will tear the kingdom apart from you and give it to your servant. Except that I do not do it in your days for the sake of your father David, but from the hand of your son I tear it apart. I do not tear the whole kingdom apart from you, but give one tribe to your son for the sake of David my servant and for the sake of Jerusalem that I have chosen. This episode talks about our master Solomon the Great from a Jewish point of view, but in the next episode we will talk about it from the Islamic point of view. Thanks for watching. Goodbye my friends.